So, we've made it to the last talk of the day, finally. And I'm not sure how about you, I'm really inspired by the talks before me. The guys did really great job, and it's an honor to be here and to close this part of DevOps. So, today I would really like to talk about just one thing, and this is innovation. It just happens that, I think that innovation is at the core of everyday operation of any company. But at the same time, somehow everyone loves innovation and hates innovation. So if I work with engineers, of course, new things, new great things, we would like to work with them. But people are reluctant to do it. And it happens to be because innovation is connected with a lot of failures. And then when appraisal comes, and you say, I did 3 projects this year, all of them have failed, the chances that you will receive promotion or raise are just not that big. And same happens with the management. Everyone would love to have a great product, great something really big, but somehow people want to do it with business cases, with business plans. Innovation doesn't work like this. Business plans are mostly considered like this. So you create this nice idea, you think, how much money, how many resources do you need, then how much time will you spend implementing this, 2 sometimes, then how much time it will be implemented, and then after all, how much new users will you get, or how much money will it generate, and then you execute it, and after this year or 2, nothing happens. In most cases, nothing happens. And this is frustrating, and this is why a lot of managers think, no, thank you, we'll just be on the safe side, just do business as usual, nothing new, just, no, thank you. And this is bad because, we all in our teams and the companies think that we need to try new things, we need to learn new things, and this comes with failure, this comes with really trying to do something, to dare to go there and try something new. And if you're not doing this, there are a lot of companies out there, your competition, who are doing this, and they will outcompete you sooner or later. So I'd like to talk about innovation. Again, in our current world, it's called digital transformation, the digital world, we are all living it. I think that it's easy to try to do innovation, especially innovation that is connected with the software development. With all the ideas of DevOps, of continuous delivery, rapid software development, it has never been easier to try something, and yet we're not doing this. So I'm going to talk about this, but first quickly about me. So, who am I? I come from Ukraine, and 3 years ago I moved to the Netherlands, and I have been working with the DevOps since 2011, and with my current company I'm working since 2010. And the idea of DevOps, I can really say, changed my life. So I learned at the project, we were doing something with the cloud technologies, and I was doing operations, so a system administrator, and suddenly the CTO came to me and said, have you heard about DevOps thing? And then it's rolled from there. I've been in the roles of software developer, of tester, of scrum master, of product owner, I've been an architect, and I've seen good and bad sides of software development. And but yet I stopped telling anyone that I'm working with DevOps, because it's not what I think DevOps is or DevOps was. It's not what people think. And when I come to companies, and it's just normal to hear, we are doing DevOps. There is this guy, DevOps, in the corner. He's sitting and he's doing continuous delivery every Sunday morning. He's doing this. And it's not even funny anymore, because this is what is really happening. And people really mean it and think it's okay. So I stopped telling that I'm doing DevOps. So what I'm doing instead, I'm business technology consultant. Right? What does that even mean? So I help we are the company, we are a company that's developing software. We are working in a nearshoring model, and we have 900 engineers in Serbia, Romania, and Ukraine. And what we're doing, we're developing software for Dutch companies, wherever is needed. And what I'm doing with the teams or without the teams, I'm helping these customers achieve business goals. This is why it's business and technology, because we're doing this with developing software. And I'm also that guy who decided to take a longer course into MBA Speak. So not 2 minutes, and yeah, I'm doing this now. I decided to do it for 2 years. But really to be able to go there and also to explain things as well with the business language. But okay, so innovation. Today I would like to tell you these 3 simple steps how you can innovate. And they are really just, well, simple, you will see. First of all, you come up with the hypothesis. 2, you go with experiment. You go to test this hypothesis. And 3, you repeat. And I will walk you through these 3 steps and why I think they're important. But let's start first with hypothesis. So, it really goes from science. And this is what it's called scientific method. So any idea that comes from science, it must be tested. It's not taken for granted. It's just, you cannot say, yes, I'm the big boss, I decided it's like this, and everyone says, yeah, okay, we're doing this. Like, no, every idea must be tested. And if something cannot be tested, it's not considered science. And I believe that science provides us all the great achievements that we came up as humanity. So the main thing here is that every idea that we're trying to implement with the software development should be treated as hypothesis. Product owners, business people, they don't have this machine in their heads that suddenly they know exactly what is needed. These are all hypotheses, and we must treat it as a hypothesis. So, for the purpose of this talk, I a bit simplified the types of innovation that exist there in the world, and I took the model of Alexander Osterwald about how more modern companies work, and here I will talk shortly about 2 types of innovation. One is called explore innovation, another one is called exploit innovation. So explore is something that, well, whenever you want to introduce something new features, new services, new products, new business models, anything new that your company is not doing right now. This is all, of course, connected with the customer experience, with their behavior, with how they are consuming your services. But this is completely new way of doing things. And this is what, in a lot of cases, software development teams are doing. They are doing explore innovation. They're introducing new features. Just how they are doing this is that, well, business goes with the requirements, here is the prioritized list, just do it. And then, yeah, okay, we are going to do it. Execute. It should be treated as a hypothesis, because, well, you never know which of these features are going to work and which not. Which of them will be required by users and which not. So all these design thinking ideas, double diamonds, service design sprints, all of them play to really understand the problem of the user and try to come up with interesting solutions to this. This is what startups are doing. They really have no business model, they need to create one. This is what lean enterprises are doing. They know that whatever model, whatever products they have right now, they just can't keep doing this and carry on. They need to constantly try new things. So this is explore innovation. Also, there is this exploit innovation. This is a bit more, some people think that it's not even innovation. Here I'm talking about something like process improvement, doing the better way of something that already exists. And some might say, well, it's not innovation at all, it's just, well, changes, improvements, call it whatever. But I really think it's innovation. If your team is trying to improve something, is trying to implement a new way of working, doing the same thing, this is innovation, regardless of if anybody else is doing or you are the first one who is trying this. And also what happens is that in a lot of cases, when you reach that stage, you cannot just Google what you can try next. You need to come up with that idea yourself, even if it is not a new service. So here we might talk about either increasing efficiency, so decreasing the number of steps some process take, or the amount of time it takes, or something like let's replace this with the new process, the same process, but we're really talking about improvements here. But also it happens that it's actually explore innovation in a way is simple, just well, go out of the blue and create something new. Exploit innovation is hard, because this is already what exists. And somehow you are the one who needs to go on and convince people that the change is needed. Why is it even needed? What is wrong with the current situation? And a lot of people say, well, don't they see it? It's obvious that the change is needed. It's not. Yeah, for a lot of people it's not. And the sad truth here is that the burden of convincing people is on you. If you want to introduce the change, it's your job to convince everyone that the change is needed. Because you are fighting against the status quo. And people feel comfort, cozy in status quo. We just stay wherever you are, and well, we have been doing this for 10 years, why do we need to change it anyways? So what I found, what helps is the model that is called ill, blame, cure, consequence. It's a model of, in debates, in public speaking, how you convince people that the change is needed. You describe the ill, the problem. What do you think is wrong? You describe the blame. What do you think the source of the problem is? You describe the cure, your solution that you propose, and the consequence. What do you think will change as the result of your solution? And what happens? Suddenly, instead of your ideas, do you like my idea or not do you like my idea, you are talking about something specific. You might be wrong with ill, but then, okay, let's discuss, have I got the right problem or not? You might be wrong with the cure. Have I come up with a good solution or not? But you're talking about specific, and you can discuss this and adjust solution. Again, instead of just saying, no, whatever that this guy is talking, because then you're talking about specifics. Ill, cure, blame, consequence. But also what I wanted to say, again, to say that everything is a hypothesis. Again, product owners, they don't know what users need. A lot of people said today that you don't need to ask users, but also at the same time, you don't need to trust product owners that they know what is needed. Because, well, again, what I see time after time is that people create roadmaps, these features are created, whole development teams are working, and the features are not used. And in a lot of cases, companies don't even realize that. They keep trying, they keep investing time and money, and then at the yearly review, yeah, it's been another year, we're still doing okay. But this is, I think, bad in the current world. Okay is no longer good enough. And doing okay is kind of easy. You need to carry on with what you have been doing. But trying to go there and kick ass, if I might say, this is something that is really hard to achieve. But this is what the users will pay for. Users don't want to pay for mediocre services anymore. And it's easy to copy mediocre services, but creating something that is really interesting to use and something that users don't expect, this is hard. Question?
If you are a monopoly, you're pretty good with mediocre.
Yeah. That's a good.
Nowhere to run anyway.
That's a good statement. So if you're a monopoly, I think it's not even you're good at mediocrity. You are good at doing the minimum things that are needed. And also the thing about monopoly is that it's easy to work with business plans with monopoly. Things just don't change. You can plan years ahead. Nothing will change. But what makes a business plans not work is this uncertainty and predictability of the world. Because things might change so quickly that your business plan for 2 years will just will be useless, or after all, the users won't need it. So uncertainty makes us and creates a need of doing things differently. Again, it's not applicable for monopoly. If you're working in a business, good, but then you don't need any of the new things. DevOps, why would you need it? So what I wanted also to say here is that about a bit about metrics, because whenever we're talking about hypothesis, we need to think, okay, so we think that this new feature will be needed by users. Why? How can we check that? And if we're talking about improvements, again, we are introducing a new process. How will we know that we're making any improvements? And this is a harder question. Again, there was the discussion today about business metrics, and it's not easy to find out the right business match. On the surface, it's super easy. You just go on and it's retention or revenue or number of new registrations, wherever. The problem starts when a lot of teams are working towards the same goal. Which team made the difference? Was it the team that was working for half a year? Or was it some guy that created one line of code and suddenly everything changed? It's hard to tell. So really you need to have some specific metrics for every hypothesis that you're trying to test, for every new feature, or for every change you're doing. How you're going to measure the impact. And sometimes it can happen, okay, we just need to reduce the page load time from 400 milliseconds to 300 milliseconds. But why? Is it the right metric? What are you trying to change really? Is 300 enough? Maybe 350 is enough. Maybe even 300 is enough and you need to have 250. How do you know that metric? Why do you set that goal? And these kind of conversations are always hard because you really need to try and understand the user's behavior, people who are actually paying money for your work. I also hear lots that, okay, these business metrics, well, leave them for business people. I think that every person in the company is part of business and every person is actually contributing to business. And if you are thinking that you cannot have any influence on business, you're putting yourself in this cage or corner of helplessness. You're limiting yourself on purpose and I don't see why would you do this. Well, okay, there are probably some evil corporations out there where they will put you in a cubicle and don't allow to do anything. But most companies are not like that. Most companies are willing for engineers to take responsibility and to try something. And yet somehow engineers think, no, thank you, we're fine here. You need to change the behavior and attitude. So, and then, we're talking about experiment. Some people say that ideas are worth nothing, it's implementation that matters. And I both agree and disagree with this statement. On one side, it's really hard to come up with an idea. How you can try something new. This is why a lot of frameworks appeared, and this is what we even discussed today. How even you can come up with something new. It's so easy to go with the status quo, and this is why I disagree with this statement. But at the same time, I agree, because even if you have idea, it's hypothesis, it's worth nothing. Until it's implemented, until it's tried, you don't know if it's going to work or not. This is why idea is worth nothing. At the same time, initial idea might be transformed into something completely different after you try to implement it and to see user behavior and to get feedback. But this is why experiment is even more important to coming up with the hypothesis. How you're going to test the hypothesis. And this is why, well, where a lot of people struggle with this. So, yeah, now I hear also a lot of things. So MVP becomes the buzzword, and people are doing full-featured MVP for 1 year, or a lot of interesting things I hear from people. But what they're trying to do, they're really trying to create the perfect product, because they're afraid that, well, if we're putting not enough, nobody will need it. But this is again back to the idea of the business plan. Let's put everything. We need to implement it, and then suddenly things will happen. This is why MVPs are hard, because you need to come up with an experiment and the bare minimum. And somebody was talking about 90 days. I think 90 days is even too long. 45 days, 1.5 months to try that experiment. And then you can make some decision. Is it working? Is it not? How we're going to do from here? Are we going to completely abandon it, change it, continue with this? But again, coming up with this idea, how you can test it with a limited group, with limited resources, with limited time, how you're going to test it. And this is where the whole idea of cross-functional and multidisciplinary team comes into play, because it's hard to just, if you have the same people, so software development team, and same with the DevOps, it's just hard for people to think out of the box to try something new. This is why I think that there is this ideal cross-functional team, and sometimes they exist, that has everyone in it. Okay, QA people, operations people, development people, business people, everyone, designers. They together need to come up with a hypothesis. They don't need to wait for somebody to tell them what to do. They're engineers, after all. They're people, highly skilled professionals. Why somebody will tell them what to do? They need to come up with a hypothesis and the ways to test this hypothesis. Also, some people say that there are heads or there are minds that can create something or can check something or test something. I disagree with this. Everyone can have different heads and different attitudes, and only when all of us are trying to think together what can we check and how we can check it, then we can make a difference. Yeah, innovation is a team sport. You cannot just do it on yourself. Question?
Yeah. Okay. So I think we are just focusing on creation of the product. But how about, or when do we do the market analysis as well, for the fit benefit?
Well, again, for the purpose of this talk, to not go into detail, it's a bit simplified. You are doing the market analysis by implementing it and putting it into the hands of users and checking what is happening. So if I go to the next slide, we're talking about the metrics. Again, so have we made any difference? If you're talking about improvements, are users using new process, or are they are still stuck in the old process because it's still better? Are we doing this efficiently? Does it take less number of steps and less amount of time or not? If you're talking about new service, are there any new users that were generated? Any new revenues? Is anyone even interested in this new feature? So we are really, with this experiment, we're not only implementing it, we're putting it into the hands of users and checking them. Again, it is, as was said today, you're not putting it into the hands of everyone simultaneously. You're testing it. You need to really limit the impact. And this is how you reduce the risk of innovation and reduce the cost of innovation. But you really need to implement this mini product and check the user's behavior on it. And again, I already talked about the metrics, so there is the idea of preventive metrics and actionable metrics. You need to find the way to show that something you are doing is making an impact and something your team is doing. Because again, something like increasing revenue, everyone can contribute to it. And then we get into the last step, and this is repeat. And the thing here is that your work is never done, and it is for a reason that so many frameworks go with the cycles and with iterations. It goes with the Scrum, with the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act, plan, do, check, act, build, measure, learn cycles, whatever. But it always goes with the cycles, and they have all common pattern. It goes like this: you're coming up with the idea, you're coming up with the experiment that can test this idea. You go with this experiment, and then you make a decision what to do next. Abandon it, change the setup, or continue rolling it out. It goes with almost every cycle that happens. And again, you cannot just stop anywhere. There is a competition out there. People are trying to get your company out of business, because then they will earn more. And if you are stopping, well, they are not stopping. And if we're talking about continuous improvement, you want to always make your processes more efficient. This is what the whole lean movement was about, or is about. And with continuous experimentation, you want a constant try of new features, of new services that can create new business for your companies. Again, your work is never done. So yeah, this is 3 simple steps: hypothesis, experiment, repeat. I will end and then we'll get to questions, okay? So, to get to key takeaways. Really, I hear a lot, I see a lot that innovation is risky, is costly, and this idea of going in circles, of trying, of treating the new ideas as hypotheses, experimenting on them and repeating, reduces the risk and reduces the cost of it. It reduces the risk because you're not executing it for years or for a really long time. You're not putting your company at stake by implementing for 2 years new IT system. You're trying it small. And if it fails, it will fail after 1.5 months, and then you can make a better decision, okay, what to do next. Same with the costs. You're not putting a huge that will fail after all. You're putting it a small one for 1.5 months, And if it fails, okay, you've learned something new. This way to do it is not working. Let's try a new way. You better learn this after 1 month than after 2 years. And again, this goes with all the circle. Come up with business ideas, and it's hard. Come up with an experiment to test this idea. Repeat, and by doing this, just innovate. Thank you.
Question. All right, one. Well, you're talking about the innovation. What I see, what I would say from business perspective is that, yes, they are talking innovation. They always underestimate the cost of, let's say, experiments. And it is indeed very hard to design a cost-effective experiment, for that matter. So you need really good guys, which are, again, expensive, vicious cycle. Then you're talking about reduction of risk. There have been, let's say, empirical studies about innovation, and what they did is they have discovered to their surprise that innovation, at least in technology branches as it happens, follows a very similar pattern to how humans discover new songs on iTunes. And quite often it happens sort of, they unlock another branch and they like dive into the tree, and then they unlock another branch and dive into the jazz and classic music, etc. But it happens quite sporadically. The funny thing is, it's driven by chaos. It is chaotic. So if you don't have chaos, you don't have innovation. Actually, your innovation depends on a certain percentage of chaos being present.
No, I think that this wasn't the question, this was a statement. And well, I agree with you. So again, today a lot was said about uncertainty, and this whole thing is driven by uncertainty. You don't know what is going to work or not. And this is what I think the chaos you're referring to. And this is why you need to try things and to try a lot of things. And this is why you need to limit the time of experiment, because the more things you try, the sooner you will find the one that is working. And this is what will eventually lead to less chaos.
What if you run out of money?
Well, pity, this is the problem of startups. This is life.
Your business says, I'm not going to, like, I don't want to.
No problem. Just go change your company. No, really. You see this kind of thing. No, I mean it. There are a lot of companies that are doing okay and they don't want to change. You can either make this change happen in this company or go to the company that wants to make a change. Is that simple? That question. Sorry, it was lazy after you.
What's the difference, or how would you say this differs from design thinking or design sprint?
I don't think it differs. I think just design thinking and design sprints is the foundation how you come up with the ideas to try. So I don't think it differs, or I don't think it's something else. It's just, it's part of it.
Yeah, in terms, you spoke about MVP.
Yep.
In terms of that, in the software context, when would you think that a software development project is ripe to be termed an MVP? If the functions are visualized, maybe not necessarily realized. Can you talk to customers? Can you talk potential customers into buying it?
So the question is, how do you make an MVP in software development project, or when do you know?
At what stage of the software development can you think that you have arrived at the MVP stage?
Well, this is a hard question because you need to know the specifics of what you're trying to implement. This is on a general question. If we think of this, I would say the same thing I've said before. You need to come up with the bare minimum that you need to implement in order to check if the users even need it or not. So if you think that there is a problem of the user, how can you, the cheapest way to check if this is really a problem for the user? Because you might think it's a problem, but the users will say, no, it's okay for us. Or they say it's a problem, but they're not going to pay money for solution of this problem. So how you're going to find this out? Sometimes you don't even need to create any software for this. Sometimes prototype is enough, or manual work is enough. But this again, it's hard to answer the question without really specific idea. And general answers are like always, they mean nothing. But yeah, you need to come up with the bare minimum to check.
Fantastic.
Was I think there because well, you guys already have asked a number of questions. Let's give.
Okay, my question is the innovation today. Do you think it's based on opinion-based DevOps teams or value-based DevOps teams? I'll give you an analogy. I want to go from Amsterdam to Rome.
Yep.
So an innovator can use a flight as a solution, but the company or the product owner can choose a train as a solution. So what's happening now, you build a train and 3 months later you realize it's wasting time, you call it process improvement and then you use a flight. So actually we are re-engineering it and wasting 3 months of time. So how do you think, what's your take on this? Are we going opinion-based or value-based?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question. So the question is how do you? No, I don't think I understand the question.
Could you it's an interesting. Could you reformulate it? I haven't got it yet either.
Okay, good. Nowadays, innovation it's opinion-based or value-based.
And by opinion-based, you mean there is a person who says we need to go there, and value-based is.
There's no value using a flight. That's what a developer will build. But companies will go have an opinion, and hence you choose train as a solution. It's an analogy. It's an example.
No, I still don't understand the question actually.
Everything is always
It's trying
opinion-based.
to ask if innovation is going to be opinion-based or is it value-based venture? So is it something you just make out from gut feelings?
Okay. So how you come up with the ideas, or how you select idea to try? This is the question. Well, we mentioned the design thinking, for example, and this is again, it's a team solution. So it's not. I don't think there can be one person who might say, okay, from all these ideas, let's try that one. Team should agree on this, and if team agrees on this, well, again, it might be right or wrong. In most cases, it will be wrong or not fully right. But you need to just try it, and if the team is convinced this is the first thing to try, perfect. But I don't think there must be product owner or somebody else who will say this is the best one. I think the team should decide.
It ties back in, Maxine, your first comment tied nicely back to Dave Snowden this morning about when you mentioned chaos and complexity as well, where ideas just emerge. And I think that might be the bridge to your opinion-based or belief-based. So you don't know. Sometimes you don't know. But following one of Dave's last comments about doing things happen on the journey, you take a step and then you discover something that you would never have discovered just thinking about it. So sometimes you just have to take a step and you'll discover maybe whether it works or when it won't. By the way, I'm sort of rolling into some closing comments. I printed a little bit this morning, a little bit of guidance that you might find useful. I thought it goes back to 1513, so it goes back a couple of 100 years. Machiavelli. The chapter in his book, The Prince, Fortune's Role, very important statement here. Fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions. We control the other half. In other words, sometimes things just happen. You know, you have to be lucky. So you can have the illusion that you can plan success, but often it just happens. You've got to be aware of that. There are some more questions or comments.
I have one. So, what would be your suggestion in terms of usage of this? Like, is it applicable for incremental and disruptive innovation both, or would you suggest for only one of the categories?
For any. Again, the main thing here is that don't think that you know what is needed. Treat it as something that you need to validate first. So this is kind of the main idea here.
Great.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you very much.